Hello. How's everybody? My name is Ryan Kirk. I'm very excited to be with you guys. My first time at the university here. And I'm going to share with you some tips for success, some things I think can help you in life. Now, when you're a student, it can be easy to focus on the next big milestone or the next big thing coming up, which for many of you is graduation. You're aiming towards this, right? Here we go, okay? You're looking forward to this moment. However, if you've seen this meme before, sometimes it can be a wake-up call. After you graduate, you realize, oh my, there's a lot more coming. Okay, now, one of the tips I want to start with is never graduate. Okay, so some of you might follow tennis and know who this guy is, Roger Federer. All right, Roger Federer is perhaps the greatest tennis player who's ever lived. He's won 20 Grand Slam titles. He's had the #1 ranking in tennis for 310 weeks. Over the last couple of decades, he's been in the top 10 almost that entire time. Yet, you want to hear something crazy about Roger Federer? He still hires coaches. He still hires coaches. Even though he's perhaps the greatest tennis player of all time, he still recognizes that he has more to learn. He still recognizes that he can improve. He's humble enough to have others give him input. He has this attitude of being a lifelong learner, of continuous improvement, of ongoing progression. Graduating is something to be proud of. It's something to celebrate, but you cannot succeed in life without being a lifelong learner. And so if you think that you can graduate university and then just take the knowledge you learned in those few years and just use it in the workplace for a long career, those days are over. Those days are finished now because we live in the information age. Learning is crucial. In fact, the ability to learn new skills may be the most crucial skill in your career. Just think of all the jobs that exist today that didn't exist 10 years ago. Okay? Or think about even the industries that didn't exist 10 years ago. Okay? I'm not sure how old I appear to you, but I graduated high school without an email address. Okay? I didn't have email when I finished high school. When I graduated university, when I finished my bachelor's, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, even Skype, none of these companies existed. Okay, it can be hard to even imagine life without these multi-billion-dollar global companies. Yet when I finished school, when I was in your shoes, they didn't even exist. Some of you might think, well, that's because you're ancient. I'm not that old. Change is happening extremely quick. Okay? This is my daughter. Okay? She's, Zwina. Okay, this is my daughter. She's just turned 11. Okay? Yet when she was born, Uber didn't exist, which is now valued at 120 billion. Okay, if you believe Wall Street and their projections right before an IPO. This is my son Zaya. Okay, when he was born, Instagram didn't exist, or WhatsApp, or Pinterest. Now, does he look old to you? Look at this kid. This kid is older than these companies. This is my youngest son. When he was born, Kareem didn't exist. Okay? He's about the same age as Jumia. These companies that have been created in the last few years and are already worth billions. He's much older than Glovo. Okay, if you're familiar with the delivery application, I'm not sure if we have it yet in Tangier, if it's just, is it in Tangier yet? Okay, coming very soon, I'm sure. This is the world that we live in. This is life in the information age. Imagine right now there's companies beginning in dorm rooms, in garages, in incubators, companies that are starting right now that 10 years from now, we won't be able to imagine life before they existed. Everyone will be using them. It'll be worth billions and billions of dollars, and right now, we've never heard of them. That's how quickly the world is changing. And so to think that when you graduate, learning is complete, you will be left behind before the ink dries on your degree. Okay, we have to be lifelong students, never ever graduate. So what should you learn? Okay, if we're supposed to keep learning, what does that mean? Do you sign up for more courses? Am I talking about doing a master's, doing a PhD? What should you learn? Well, one thing is career and life skills. So you've probably been focusing a lot on engineering, but what about personal finance? What about sales and marketing? What about management? What about leadership? What about how to build an email sales funnel? What about soft skills like conflict resolution or listening or negotiation? Okay, these things will be extremely valuable in your career, but you may not have had enough courses focused on those things. And so you graduate with knowledge in engineering, but it's crucial that you expand that knowledge, that you continue it yourself after graduation. You're a lifelong student. Along with career skills, you can broaden your knowledge in other areas. You may not have had time to learn about other things that are interesting or important in life. Do you know much about history? Could you tell me what was it that started the First and Second World War? Do you know much about your faith? Have you had the chance to read through the Quran from cover to cover? Or have you read the Injil? Do you know much about geography? Could you point to El Salvador or to the Ukraine or to Cambodia on a map? You know, learning these things will broaden your knowledge and make you a more well-rounded person. It's really important that you recognize that learning is an investment in yourself. Okay, here's a quote from Warren Buffett saying that it's the best investment. Okay, he's known as one of the greatest investors, worth billions and billions. The greatest investment you can make is in yourself. And that the more you learn, the more you will earn. So you have to see that the return on investment is high when you put time into your own learning. Now, to attend a conference like this, when you're not a student and your classes aren't canceled, it can be costly. Or to spend money on books, or to enroll in courses, or to go to an event in the evening after a long day at work, it can cost you something, but the return on investment in your own learning is high. And so never ever graduate. Now, this is something that I personally live out. This is something I believe in and I'm committed to. I finished my MBA 6 years ago, but I think I've learned far more since I graduated, since I completed my formal studies. I've learned far more about life and business through my own studies and my own experience. Now, there's 3 primary ways that I continue to develop myself outside of formal schooling. One way is through reading, intentional reading. Okay, I'm passionate about learning through books. This is today. This is this afternoon. Whenever I'm in Tangier, I've got to hit the best bookstore in Morocco to find English-speaking books on personal development. Okay, that's where I got this book today. I had this ordered. This just came out. I was waiting for this book. You cannot get this book in Casa. You've got it here in Tangier. Okay, I'm committed to investing in myself through this avenue of intentional reading. Actually, I've put together a PDF of my top 10 must-read books for new graduates. Okay, for people that are at your stage of life, finishing school and entering into the real world. These are books that I've read and highly recommend. I'll tell you at the end how I can send that to you. Okay, the second avenue for focusing on my own learning is through YouTube. It's through spending time watching videos that input. So I create videos. I like to have my own YouTube channel, but I also consume content and have my favorite channels of personal development. And I encourage you to do the same thing, to not just use it as entertainment, but also as learning and self-development. And then the last one is Headphones University. Okay? So in 2014, I downloaded the app Audible, which is Amazon's, Audible book application. Started listening to books, and then that led to podcasts. And it's had a huge impact on what I know, on my experience, and on who I am as a person. So you are going to graduate from ENSAT, but then I encourage you to enroll in the world's top university, Headphones University. Okay, this is the information age. And at Headphones University, there's lectures happening 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. You can listen to millions and millions of lectures on any topic that you're interested in, and you can learn from the world's top minds. Now, a huge percentage of this information is completely free, and it all just comes straight through your ears at Headphones University. Okay, all it takes is that you open up a podcast, search for something you're interested in, and start learning. Now, when you're a student here, you're a full-time student, you do about 30 hours of class a week. Is that fair? More? Some say more. Okay. Let's say on average about 30 hours. You have a couple semesters, 12 weeks of lectures in each semester. Okay. Works out to about 720 hours a year that you're in a lecture. Okay, more than 700 hours that you're sitting there and there's a professor imparting her wisdom to you, passing on her knowledge to you. Okay? Now, that's less than 2 hours a day. So even if you are working full-time, even if you're a full-time student, through your headphones, you could be learning more outside of the classroom than you gain from being in the classroom, because this is the information age. All I need is a smartphone and a Wi-Fi connection, and I can access the world's top minds. Which brings me to my second point: find mentors. Find mentors. Now, who here has heard of Peter Nicholson? Peter Nicholson. Anybody know who Peter Nicholson is? Okay. Who here has heard of Elon Musk? Okay, I thought maybe a room full of engineers, there'd be some Elon Musk fans out there. Hey, Elon Musk, in my opinion, is the most exciting CEO on the planet. Okay, he's the CEO of Tesla, an electric car manufacturer, and also of SpaceX and the Boring Company. Okay, he has a lot of ideas and dreams of where humanity is headed, and he's committing his life to take us there. Okay, very exciting engineer. But I want to tell you that when Elon Musk was in your shoes, okay, he's a South African guy, but he studied in Canada. Okay, he went to an engineering school in Canada. And when he was a student, when he was in your shoes, he decided he needed some mentors in his life. And so he contacted athletes, journalists, business executives, leaders, and asked them if he could meet with them. All right, so that's pretty rare. This took a lot of initiative. He was very ambitious, very proactive. Okay, this is the days before social media. So this would have taken a little research to get people's phone numbers, to call, to send an email, to try to track down some of these people. Now, one of the people who responded was Peter Nicholson. Peter Nicholson was an executive at one of the top Canadian banks, and for some reason he agreed to meet with this kid from a university that just contacted him and asked for a meeting. Now, Elon wasn't going to school in the same city as Peter, so it'd be like somebody here at ENSAT contacting a bunch of people in Rabat or in Casa, and then someone says, okay, yeah, sure, I'll meet with you. Well, then you've got to get on the train and go and have this meeting. Well, this was Elon's introduction to the financial world. It led to a summer internship at the bank that Peter worked at. And this came to play a big role in Elon's life. When Elon Musk was graduating, he called his mentor, he called Peter, and he asked for advice. And he said, "What do you think I should do? Should I go and do my master's, or should I move to Silicon Valley and do a startup?" And Peter gave him the advice, "You know what? Your master's isn't going anywhere. If you take a few years and do some work, you can always come back and do your master's. But what's going on in Silicon Valley with the internet, this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. You got to take that." So he did. Elon Musk went to Silicon Valley. He started a company called Zip2. After a few years, he sold it, and his share was worth $22 million. With that $22 million, he tried to start the world's first online bank called X Bank, which later merged with PayPal. When Elon Musk cashed out of PayPal, it was worth $360 million, his share. He used that $360 million to then invest in Tesla and to found SpaceX. Hey, now, there was a major turning point in his life when he was in your shoes, and it was the input, it was the advice of his mentor to go for it, to go to Silicon Valley. And his experience as an intern at a bank led to his interest in the finance world, led to him starting X Bank, which merged with PayPal. You can see the hand of mentorship in the path that Elon Musk took. Now, none of us have heard of Peter Nicholson. We've heard of Elon Musk, but his mentors played a key role in his life. Now, it's important that we have the humility of someone like Roger Federer to recognize, I still have a lot to learn. I need a lot of input. There's people who have done things I've never done. There's people who have walked this path before me, and I can learn from them. I can benefit from their wisdom. Now, I've been privileged to have many different mentors in my life. There's many men that I look up to, that are heroes to me, that I admire, that I'm able to get their advice and input. I'm able to watch how they live. Hey, and this isn't just people in person. It can also be through books. It can also be through podcasts. It can also be through YouTube. But it's more than just the learning part. It's that I get involved in their story. They're not just sharing information. They're sharing their life. They're showing what it is to be a life well lived. Okay? So, never graduate. Find mentors. And number 3, specialize. Okay, you must be familiar with this guy. Okay, this is a national hero, right? Yeah, that's right. Whew. Okay, I'm only going to say Isham because I don't want to embarrass myself by mispronouncing his last name. So Isham, the greatest middle distance runner in world history, okay? He holds the record for the outdoor 1,500 meter, 1 mile, and 2,000 meter race. And just until this year, until 2019, he held the indoor record for the 1,500 meter and the mile as well. Okay? He's won 2 Olympic gold medals and also a silver medal. But the most amazing fact about him are these things. 7 of the 10 fastest ever 1 mile times are his. And 7 of the 9 fastest ever 1,500 meter times are his. It's mind-blowing. He's the greatest middle distance runner the world's ever seen. Okay? Now this is Michael Phelps, an American swimmer. This is arguably the greatest swimmer to ever dive into a pool. He is the greatest Olympian ever. Sadly, he alone has more medals than all of Morocco in Morocco's history. But don't feel bad, that's the same for 161 countries in the world. He has 28 Olympic medals. He's the world record holder for all kinds of distances. No one's ever swam like him. Now, he's 193 centimeters, he's 88 kilograms, but look at this picture of Michael Phelps. What do you notice about his design, the way he's shaped? He's very tall. He has very broad shoulders. He has a very skinny waist. He has size 14 feet. His elbows, his knees, and his ankles are double jointed. And in addition to that, his arms, normally you could say your wingspan, if I go like this, a good rule of thumb is that it's equal to your height. Most of us, our arms spread out is equal to our height. Not this guy. He's like a gorilla. He has extra long arms. He has extra several centimeters on each side that the average person doesn't have. Now here's the interesting thing. Besides just being the greatest in their sports, the greatest ever in the sports that they chose, there's something else that Michael and Isham have in common. They have the same length of an inseam. Okay, the distance from the top of your pants and the inside to the bottom. In fact, Isham's, though he's 17 centimeters shorter, Isham's is 1 centimeter longer than Michael Phelps. Okay, the reason is because Isham, he's all legs. He has very long legs. Michael Phelps, he's all torso. He's just walking around with these little legs and this long body and these flapping arms. Hey, they have an unfair competitive advantage. Isham, he was made to run. Michael Phelps, he was made to swim. They have an unfair competitive advantage. So, what were you made for? What were you made for? If you look at a building, you can understand the intention of its design. You see a stadium, you see an apartment building, you see an office, you see a school. You know what its intended use is. It was designed intentionally. The architects, the engineers, they have a plan for it. So when you look around at the world, when you see the ocean, when you see the sunsets, when you see palm trees, when you see the Atlas Mountains, you see even a small little butterfly, you can see an intentional design. You can see a brilliant engineer with logic and thought and order. So, when you look in the mirror, when you consider what you're interested in, what you're good at, what you're passionate about, when you consider your experiences, your upbringing, the opportunities you've had, even the challenges, the hardships, the obstacles that you've overcome, when you look at all these things, what were you made for? Some people are good with numbers. Others are good with words. Some people learn languages quickly. They communicate really well. They enjoy public speaking. Some people are good with their hands. They can figure stuff out. They can build things. Some are good with people. They have natural social skills. Some people are interested in art or music or computer programming or science or sports. And we all have different experiences that have led us to this point. Some people grew up rich. Some people grew up poor. Some people lived in a small village. Some people lived in a big city. Some were an only child. Some had huge families. All these things have shaped you. They've brought you to this point. Okay, they've given you in somewhere opportunities. So you have to ask yourself, what are your unique abilities? What are your natural talents? In what areas could you become in the top 10% in the world? In what areas could you be an expert or could you become an authority? Where do you have an unfair competitive advantage? Okay, it's important that you think about this and that you specialize. All right? Now, we have an expression in English being a big frog in a small pond or a big fish in a small pond. And the idea is somewhat illustrated in this picture where this fish over here is just like everybody else and blends in and is difficult to stand out. But over here, this fish has a unique opportunity. It's an unsaturated market. the fish has an unfair competitive advantage. There's no other goldfish around. The Americans like to say the riches are in the niches. It's because they don't speak French, and so they butcher the word niche. But the idea is there that we need to specialize. We need to focus on the areas where we have an advantage. Now, this is what I've done with starting a YouTube channel. Now, my YouTube channel is focused on personal development, it's focused on Morocco, and it's in English. Now, I'm not the greatest expert on personal development. There's channels that I watch and learn from and books that I read. There's others far above me. I don't have the best channel in the world for English, and I don't have the best channel in the world for Moroccans. However, when you combine these things, personal development, English, and Morocco, it's a little bit like this. There's not a lot of competition. I have an unfair competitive advantage. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that in a prideful way. I'm admitting I'm a small fish. But I've found a niche. I've found a place where my voice can be heard and where I can contribute something unique. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, I don't know what my natural giftings are. I'm not sure where I should specialize. I don't know what my competitive advantage is. It's okay. It's okay. Relax. Mushi mushkil. You're going to figure it out, okay? Just calm down. The 20s are an excellent time to try stuff. The 20s are an excellent time to experiment, to test things out, to take some risks, and to get to know yourself. But you should have the goal, you should have the intention that you desire to specialize, okay? Now, just a side note, before I move on to number 4, there's a danger in me talking about Isham and Michael Phelps. And the danger is that you're going to think it's all about genetics, it's the will of God, and I have no control. I wasn't born with size 14 feet, and so I guess I can never be a great swimmer. Okay, and it's important you recognize this principle, that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work. Now, you cannot become a world-class Olympian without the hand of God. There definitely has to be some genetic giftings there in sports. If you want to be the best in the world, there's got to be an element of God. However, there's a lot of guys walking around with long arms and floppy feet that are not Michael Phelps. He has dedicated his life to his craft. He started swimming competitively when he was 7. He spent a minimum of 4 hours in the pool 7 days a week. Doesn't take days off. And that doesn't count weight training. Hey, look at this. This is his goals, his written goals. I would like to make the Olympics. I would like to make junior in at least one event. He's got all his different races and his times. He was 8 years old when he made this. So he has dedicated his life to his craft. So don't just write off responsibility and say, well, God didn't make me good with languages, or God didn't make me good with numbers, or okay. Now this really comes into play when you're searching for a job, because it's easy to make excuses. The situation is tough in Morocco. Okay? There's a high unemployment, and it's highest among this group right here. Young people with a degree. So it's tough. It's competitive. It's not easy. And so there's a temptation to say, well, I don't have as much experience as that person, or I didn't get as high grades as that person, or I didn't go to a school as good as that person, or I don't have as many connections. My father doesn't know as many people as that person. It's easy to sort of write off responsibility. But hard work beats talent. Hard work beats a good CV. Hard work beats connections when those things don't work. So you can compensate. You can make up for those things. So that was just a little side note. Let's go on to number 4. Number 4 is build habits. Okay, never graduate, find mentors, specialize, and now build habits. I want to talk about habits. This is a subject I'm very passionate about. About 40% of the things you do every day are simply habits. Okay, so let's do a little experiment. Why doesn't everybody just fold their arms? We've got one person's already ahead of me. Just fold your arms. Everybody in the audience, just cross your arms, okay? Okay, now, don't move your arms. Just keep your position. But I want you just to look down and ask yourself, why did you do it that way? Okay, there's really 4 options. You could keep both hands up, like I've got. Some people tuck both hands in. You can keep your right hand up, your left hand tucked, or left hand up, right hand tucked. Those are the 4 options. Why did you choose the one you chose? Okay, try to reverse it. Try to do it a different way. How's that feel? Why doesn't it work? You're physically capable. It's not that your arms are folded and have grown in such a way that that's just the way God intended for you to fold your arms. It's just a habit. It's just something that you learned when you were this high. You probably were cold one day on the playground, and you started folding your arms, and then that's it. Okay, and that's what happens with habits. It requires no decision from us. You did not decide, which way should I fold my arms today? Which hand should I tuck in? You don't think about it, right? Now, at the beginning, you do think about it. I watch my kids trying to undo a button or tie their shoes. They're focused. They're concentrating. They're using their conscious mind to try to train their body what to do. But we're long past that. We don't have to pay attention. I could undo a button and continue my talk. I could tie up my shoes and we could hold a deep conversation. I don't need my conscious mind to do it anymore because of the power of habit. Okay? It's the invisible architecture of our life. And all throughout the day, you rely on habits to free up your brain to focus on more important things. You save the battery. Okay? It's just like your phone. You have to be careful which apps you use. You don't want to drain the battery. You want it to last until the end of the day or until you can find a place to plug in. That's how the brain thinks too. Don't make too many decisions. Save the brain power. Push these behaviors down into a habit. Now, we can use this. We can leverage this power to our advantage to reach success in life. Habits are powerful. Good habits are hard to develop but easy to live with. Bad habits are easy to develop but hard to live with. The habits you have and the habits that have you will determine almost everything you achieve or fail to achieve. Most of it will come back to your habits. You see, doing one thing on one day, most activities, it's going to have very little impact in the long run. There's very few ways you can radically change your life in one day. It's habits done consistently over time that will have the greatest impact. People do not decide their futures. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures. So when you think about where you want to get to, when you think about your dreams and your vision of success, what you need to ask yourself is, what are the habits that will lead me there? What are the steps that I need to not make once, but what are the regular activities that I need to have in my life that will, in the long run, bring me to where I'm going? Now, this idea is beautifully outlined in the book, The Compound Effect. This is on my list of the top 10 must-read books for you guys. And in this book, he lays out what this looks like in several different areas. Okay, Warren Buffett has a great quote about this. Someone's sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. Now, let's take a look at what this can look like. Imagine I said to you, what would it take to read a stack of books like this in a year? What kind of commitment do you think it would take to read this many books every year? What do you think? 15 minutes a day? 1 hour a day? Okay, it's about 18 books, which if you imagine 200 pages, you're looking at about 3,600 pages. With, you think about 365 days, we're just guesstimating here, but we're getting to about 10 pages a day. Okay? So how long will it take you to read 10 pages a day? If you could find the time to read 10 pages a day, this would be your annual intake of books. And 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you'd have a huge bookshelf. Someone would come over and say, how many of those have you read? All of them. How did you find time to read all those books? Just 15 minutes a day for 10 years. It's these small little actions that compound. They don't just add up, but they actually begin to multiply. They begin to grow exponentially over time. Okay, I've got a series on my channel about money. Now you see this stack of dirhams. Big pile of dirhams. Okay? It's actually grown a lot more since then. I made this video last summer. Now, it's a lot, but really, the habit that I've developed is that I don't spend 10 dirham coins. I keep them. All right, so I go out and I buy something, it costs 50 dirhams. I get back a 20, a 10, and a couple fives. I keep the 10. And if I have something that costs 10 dirhams, I don't spend that 10. I break another 20. Now, some days I don't buy anything, or some days I don't get any 10s. Or I might go on a trip and be outside of Morocco, but on average, it's 1 coin a day. So it's just on average about 10 dirhams a day during the time I've lived in Morocco that I've tossed into a bag. Okay, now let me show you what this looks like. Okay? Hey, it's a big stack of money. You might think, wow, yeah, 18,000 dirhams, that's a lot. It's 10 dirhams a day over the years that I've been living here in Morocco. Okay? The idea is that we usually overestimate what we can accomplish in a year, but we grossly underestimate what we can accomplish in a decade. Now, if you decided you were going to run just half an hour a day for the next year, you'd end up in Mauritania. You start from here, you run 30 minutes a day. In 1 year, you'll be a couple thousand kilometers from here. It sounds staggering to think of covering that much ground, but in small little doses done over time, you can accomplish incredible things. So the lesson there is that we need to choose good habits. We need to choose the right habits because these things grow and they grow over time. Okay, here's an excellent video that illustrates this.
Everybody knows about playing with dominoes, but what you may not know is that a domino can knock over another domino which is about 1.5 times larger. So what I have here is a chain of dominoes. Each one is 1.5 times larger than the previous one. And the smallest domino is about 5 millimeters high and 1 millimeter thick. And I will carefully place it. And there are 13 dominoes. And the largest domino, it weighs about 100 pounds and is more than 1 meter tall. Ready? Boom. That was 13 dominoes. If I had 29 dominoes, the last domino would be as tall as the Empire State Building.
Okay. So you may feel like in some area, like in your finances or in your health or in your personal education, that you're starting out like a little SIM card. But if you stick with it, consistency, the results begin to compound over time. You may not see any change over months and weeks, and that's when a lot of people give up. But if you have these habits where you stay consistent, we could meet again in 5 years or in 10 years, and if you stay on track, you will be in an extremely different place than the rest of your colleagues who don't develop those habits. So think about the areas of your life and think, what are the habits that I need to develop to be successful in my career, in my spiritual life, in my health, in my learning, in my family? What are the small daily actions that I need to adopt in order to reach my dreams in each of these areas? Okay, and the last I want to share with you, the last tip to help you get towards success is to think long term. Now, created a well-known masterpiece, several incredible, world-renowned pieces of art is Michelangelo. And one of his masterpieces was a piece called The David. And you can go and see it in Florence, Italy. And the fascinating thing for me about this piece of art is that he was your age when he created this. He was mid-20s, early to mid-20s. He created this piece of art, okay? So you can go and see this thing. It's made from one block of marble. You see this guy down here. How large that is. Okay, how's this one? Okay. But listen to the quote of Michelangelo. He says, "In every block of marble I see a statue as plain as though it stood before me, shaped and perfect. All I have to do is dig away the rocks that are blocking the statue from everybody else's view." So there's a piece of rock. He puts a ladder on it. He climbs up the ladder, takes his hammer, and he already sees in his mind the David. He already sees it. It's as if the David is in the rock, trapped. Help me, get me out. He already sees it. Hey, he begins with the end in mind. Now, this is an important life principle, that you think through, where do I want to get to? Where do I want to head? And you begin with this end in mind. It's like reverse engineering. You imagine where you want to finish, and then you work backwards from there. Okay, now there's a couple exercises you can do. Some of you can imagine your 80th birthday. You think, okay, when I'm 80 years old, what kind of party do I want to have? Who do I want to be there? Do I want my spouse? Will my kids be there? How many kids am I going to have? Are my grandkids going to be there? My colleagues? And everybody's going to get up and they're going to make a speech for you. And they're going to talk about who you are, what you've done, what you've accomplished. And you can envision this perfect 80th birthday party, that you would be able to celebrate the life that you've lived. And then once you have that image, you reverse engineer. You work backwards to where you are now. You say, if that's my view of a life well lived, what do I have to do to reach that point? What are the small daily actions? What are the milestones? What are the goals that will get me to where I want to go? Some of you in this room can think even longer term. And in your faith, you believe that one day you will stand before God and you will answer for the life that you've lived and for the gifts that He gave you. And so the same principle applies, where you say, what do I want to be able to say or present to God, and then reverse engineer and work backwards to today. If that's where I want to end up, then how do I take a path now that's going to get me there? You do not want to end up getting to a place where you're filled with regrets or where you feel like you haven't lived your life well. This comes from long-term thinking. This comes from looking ahead and then moving back to today. Okay? So, never graduate, find mentors, specialize, build habits, and think long term. And leave you with this. If you would like this PDF of the top 10 must-read books for new grads, there's a few other pages that didn't fit on the screen there. You can send me your email address through the website maroctreasure.com. And so anyone who signs up in the next couple days, I'll know it's you, and I'll email you the PDF, okay, at maroctreasure.com. So, my friends, I wish you all the best in this life and in your career, and I wish that you will live in such a way that you finish your life with no regrets and prepared for that 80th birthday and beyond. Okay? Thank you very much.